Hello, and welcome to Nursing News You Can Use live at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, your host, and thank you for tuning in. Today is August the 27th, 2025, the last Wednesday of the month of August for this year. And I just want to make a quick announcement. Next week, I will be on vacation, so there will be no live show next week because I'm taking a much needed break. And so there will be no live show next week. But don't forget, you can watch all our other videos and tune into the Nurse Shark Academy show and watch some of our podcasts and where I interview nurse business owners and leaders. So there's great content for you to have. They're available on Facebook and on YouTube. All right, let's go ahead and get into our affirmation for today from the You Are a Badass calendar from Jen Sincero, and it says, love is your greatest weapon against your limiting subconscious beliefs. Love is all consuming. It muscles its way in front of all other thoughts and emotions, including all the fear, doubt, and worry buried in your subconscious mind. So I'm just going to say, lead with love. All right, let's go ahead and get into our news for today because there is a lot to cover and we do have some announcements. All right, so this is coming from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. It says, troubled Milwaukee area nursing homes will have a new operator soon. Residents protest conditions. A group of Wisconsin nursing homes that were put into court-ordered receivership due to financial distress will soon be taken over by a new operator. Attorney Michael Polsky, the receiver appointed to oversee the transition, said he has identified a new management company with, quote, substantial experience dealing with issues affecting the Bedrock facilities. The four nursing homes, Silver Springs Health Care Center in Glendale, Heritage Square Health Care Center in Greenfield, Riverdale Health Care Center in Muskota, and Fort Atkinson Health Care Center, were formerly managed by Bedrock Healthcare. In addition to amassing millions of dollars in debt, the four facilities also racked up nearly 384 violations for health and safety deficiencies in the last 3 years. Although Polsky declined to name the company that will take over the homes, he said representatives have visited the four sites on a regular basis. Once an agreement has been finalized, the court will move to approve the transfer of operations. Polsky has acted as a receiver for numerous nursing homes in the past decade, including 32 long-term care facilities, previously managed by Atrium Health and Senior Living, and 65 long-term care previously managed by Fortis Management Holdings. However, quality of the care, at least at Silver Springs Health Care Center, remains the top concern for resident Letty Burks. Burks staged a small protest on August 15th outside the facility to draw attention to what she described as sweltering temperatures, supply shortages, understaffing, and neglect. Burks said Bedrock, which owns 6 other nursing homes across the country, including 3 in Wisconsin, should still be held accountable. Just because they're gone doesn't mean the damage is done. Burke, who's 49, who has been at Silver Springs for the last 3 years. Robert Fisher, CEO of Silver Springs, did not respond to an email seeking comment about Burke's protest. Polsky concerned that the receivership has funding in place to provide for, quote, all necessary care to Bedrock residents, and the new operator will take over managing the facilities as soon as possible. So the reason why I brought this story out was because it was interesting to see the residents were actually protesting. And so I thought, well, this is an interesting case of self-advocacy and the residents advocating for themselves. And so that's why I wanted to share this one. And so let's go further onto this. It says Silver Springs resident Joanne Wintrop, 74, joined Burke's protest. At the end of the nursing home driveway, the pair, along with Burke's son, held up large posters that read, "Nightmare on Silver Spring Drive, Stop Nursing Home Abuse, and End Bedrock's Madness 2025. Several passing cars honked in support, and one staff member arriving at the facility for a shift beat twice before throwing a thumbs up in their direction. Weintraub previously contacted the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel in July with concerns about the lack of cleanliness and air conditioning in her room. For weeks, Weintraub said she had slept with her curtains drawn and sheets off the bed to ease the oppressive heat. A visit to her room July 31st showed the thermostat read 80 degrees on a 70-degree day. On a typical summer day, the temperature climbs up to 90 degrees, she said. Similar concerns have been raised at Silver Springs before. Health inspection reports from June 2024 found a resident with chronic respiratory failure had been living in dangerously hot conditions for 2 months. At the time of the visit, the thermometer in his room read 86 degrees. Can I just say, when we had our little thunderstorm that went through and knocked down all the trees and all the power was out, it was hot during that time. It was so hot. It was miserable. It was 80 some degrees in my house, and I had fans on. I can imagine how these poor residents felt. Weintraub, who previously worked as a TV critic and feature writer with the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, says she feels more like a prisoner than a resident at the healthcare facility. She is under a court ordered guardianship, meaning she's not considered competent to make decisions about her living arrangements. She is under court order to stay at Silver Springs for another 14 months. She says, I'm hoping to find a lawyer, maybe a guardianship lawyer, who can help with this. I can't let this be my life. In addition to sweltering temperatures, Burks and Weintraub both describe residents having to sit in their own waste for hours at a time and become dehydrated as they waited for staff to refill their water. Many residents can't speak up for themselves, Burks added, a fact that has motivated her to raise her voice. I have come to realize that I have to stand up. I can't let 3 more years of this nonsense go. Over the last 3 years, the 10 homes managed by Bedrock in Wisconsin have averaged 3 serious deficiencies each, about triple the national average, according to data from the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, or Medicare and Medicaid Services. In the same time period, state health inspectors cited the 4 Wisconsin facilities that are entering receivership for several serious violations, including one related to the death of a resident with a history of seizures in January and the alleged SA of another last July. Of the citations, 282 were triggered by complaints, and the rest were the result of standard health inspections. When asked what responsibilities, if any, remain with Bedrock, Polsky said Bedrock remains responsible for anything that happened prior to my appointment as a receiver. So we'll continue to monitor that story, but I'm going to say kudos to those residents for taking the chance to speak up on their own. And so I think that's wonderful. All right. So here's an article that came from nurse.org. And of course, as an NP, this voice hits hard for me because it's close to home. And it made me think about this. But what I also find is that these nurses are advocating for themselves. And I think it's about time that they do take it to the court. The legislature is not helping us, so maybe the courts can. Says nurse practitioner forced to pay $50K physician oversight fee to run clinic sues the state. I never would have thought of that. But yeah, I guess the legislator's not helping us, so maybe the courts can. A licensed family nurse practitioner with over 30 years of experience, Marcy Marks, is fighting against the Missouri's law that forces nurse practitioners to pay physicians for permission to practice in non-hospital settings. On August 20th, 2025, she filed a lawsuit challenging the state's collaborative practice agreement and the hefty costs and legal burdens it imposes, arguing it violates her constitutional rights under both state and federal law. Missouri mandates that NPs maintain a collaborative practice agreement with a physician to deliver even routine care. Marcy pays upwards of $50,000 annually for this so-called permission slip. Marks is a highly experienced family nurse practitioner with decades of clinical and leadership roles in acute care and allergy and immunology services. She earned both her BSN and MSN from the University of Missouri St. Clair School of Nursing and holds national certification from the ANCC. Her career spans ICU, cardiac, thoracic, and research settings, and her clinic, Columbia Allergy and Asthma Specialist, sees 6,500 patients annually. From the complaint, quote, by law, Ms. Marks must contract with a physician to see patients at her clinic and provide the care that she is specifically licensed to deliver. Because of this mandate, Ms. Marks must pay a physician $52,800 per year, an artificial cost imposed by Missouri law, just to engage in the very work she is uniquely qualified to perform. Missouri is among one of the 11 states, Indiana included, imposing such restrictive CPA mandates, despite 80% of its counties being physician deserts, areas with little or no access to primary care. The law allows physicians to control nurse practitioners' livelihoods and charge unlimited fees for minimal oversight, exacerbating healthcare shortages and limiting affordable care. Mark's complaint asserts that the Missouri CPA requirement violates the gains of industry clause in the Missouri Constitution by denying her the right to enjoy the fruits of her labor without paying for bureaucratic permission, breaches both state and federal due process rights as it arbitrarily restricts her profession and imposes burdens unrelated to patient safety. Through her pro bono legal team at Pacific Legal Foundation, Marks argues that the law serves no public safety purpose and instead protects economic interests and stifles care access. Mark's attorney, Donna Mateus, summed it up. Nurse practitioners are exceptionally trained, licensed healthcare providers who shouldn't need to pay a doctor tens of thousands of dollars just for permission to treat patients. This protectionist scheme strips away Marcy's constitutional rights while worsening Missouri's healthcare crisis. A victory in Marcy Marks versus Andrew Bailey could, quote, empower MPs to practice independently in underserved regions, lower healthcare costs, and improve access, provide constitutional protection for professional autonomy. For nurse practitioners across the country, this lawsuit shows the real challenges created by the collaborative practice laws. It's a reminder of why pushing back against restrictive rules matter, not just for professional freedom, but for patients' access to care. The outcome of this Columbia case could influence how MPs practice in Missouri and beyond. AG Andrew Bailey has not publicly addressed this court case, but he did recently announce his resignation in order to serve as co-deputy director of the FBI. Nurse.org will continue to update this article as more information becomes available. So we'll also keep an eye on this, but if you want to hear more, go to nurse.org. They do excellent work over there. I appreciate all the information that they provide. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay. Here's another story. I don't know. Sometimes I get really, really tired of covering some of these stories, and it's like, can't we just do our jobs? But anyway, this is from the Fresno Bee. And again, I want to say, preface that all this is alleged. It has not been through the due process. But here's what it says. Nurses showed no urgency as man died in Central Valley ER hallway, report says. The family of a man who died in the hallways of Central Valley's hospital's emergency department has filed a wrongful death lawsuit arguing the staff carelessly failed to triage their dad in a timely manner as he experienced heart failure. On October the 1st, 2023, Eric Berger, 60, called 911 and reported chest pains and shortness of breath. Within minutes of arriving at Kawia, we're going to go with Kawia, Health Medical Center's emergency department, he started seizing and went into cardiac arrest, according to the state investigation report. He was pronounced dead about a half hour later. The state investigation, a former staff member, a lawsuit, and a paramedic report alleged 2 emergency department nurses, unnamed in the lawsuit, were just sitting around and showed no urgency when Berger was brought in to the hospital. Paramedics radioed ahead to the emergency room staff that they were arriving in 10 minutes and that he would need to be seen immediately. A former emergency department staff member speaking out publicly about Berger's death, saying that he is the one who filed a complaint with the state over the incident, saying it was his ethical and moral obligation. Nathaniel Leeds, a realtor representing Berger's family in the lawsuit, said in a statement, "Our emergency rooms are one of the few places in our society where everyone should expect dignity and to be treated equally regardless of their background. It's heartbreaking when hospital staff does not appreciate the importance of their own mission." The 2 emergency department nurses who were accused of failing to respond to the request in a timely manner could have their licenses revoked according to state records. In a statement to the Bee, Kawia Health said that as a matter of policy and out of respect for the patients and their families, it is not publicly discussed pending or settled litigation. Due to the federal patient privacy laws, the hospital said it will not comment specifically about a patient's care at Kawia Health. The two registered nurses referenced in the matter were placed on administrative leave and are no longer employed with Kiwia Health. They also were reported to the California Board of Registered Nursing. So this is what they said happened. On October the 1st, 2023, the Executive District Ambulance picked up Berger at his home in Visalia. When paramedics arrived, they found Berger struggling to breathe and barely able to make 2 to 3 word sentences. As paramedics pulled into the ambulance bay, Berger's condition worsened. He told paramedics that he felt his automated implantable cardio diverter defibrillator, okay, his defibrillator, um, a medical device that uses electric charge to restore a normal heartbeat, started to fire and shock him. As paramedics rushed him into the emergency department around 5:07 p.m., 2 nurses, a registered nurse and a mobile intensive care nurse, were just sitting down, showing no urgency. When a paramedic asked which room the patient should be taken to, the 2 nurses appeared focused on a private conversation, and they both giggled and delayed patient care and told me I have to register the patient first. Okay. So then they told him that the patient was struggling with an internal defibrillator, and they said, "Oh, well, you didn't say that in your report," and so they did it. So the paramedics ceded to the nurse's instructions and registered the patient, which took about 3 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5. Okay. Then a second paramedic told the nurses that the patient was starting to seize, yet the 2 nurses still did not show any urgency, according to a reference to a patient care record in the state investigation. Berger was announced dead at 5:47 p.m. Leeds, the attorney for the plaintiff, stated his opinion indifferent nursing stems from hospital management trying to do too much with too few nurses. Additionally, there has been an increase of nursing burnout leading to malpractice since the coronavirus pandemic. An analysis from malpractice insurance providers found, and again, I don't know why this has to do anything with nurse practitioners because they weren't nurse practitioners. Anyway, so I'm not going to read that part. So basically, Kevin Barnes used to work as a unit secretary and the health in the emergency department. He arrived for a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, and he said something was off. The injury in the hospital was different. No one was saying much. Part of Barnes' duties involved filing paramedic reports in patient files. When he read the report about Berger's death, he said it was the worst thing I've ever read. Barnes said he felt responsible to do something because otherwise no one was going to see the report. He prayed about what to do with the information. He said, God told me as long as I do the right thing, it'd be okay in the end. He issued a complaint with the state. Following the incident, the California Department of Public Health investigated his death, Berger's death, on November 11th and found 2 deficiencies related to nursing services, policies, and procedures, and with planning and implementing patient care. Barnes also decided to share what he knew about Berger's death with Berger's kids, whom he'd known all his life. So there's the other issue. See, there's the other issue. And I'm not saying he didn't do the right thing, but he's got some personal connections to the family too. He said also share what he knew about Berger's death with Berger's kids, whom he known all his life. He says he believed the hospital lied to the family. If it was my parents, I want to know the truth. I knew it would cost me my job. He was later fired in January 2024, and he believes it's retaliation for sharing information and complaining to the state. Officially, he was told he was let go for a HIPAA violation. Kiwia Health said there's no employment status was changed due to whistleblowing claim. So, of course, they deny that. Attempts to reach the nurses were unsuccessful. So, again, there sounds like there might have been something going on there, but my hearts go out to the family. I hope they find something, but it does sound like this guy had a lot of health problems. So I don't even know if, I haven't read any of the complaints or the legal documents or any of that. But I'm just wondering if there's any way this guy could have been saved. It sounded like he had a lot of health problems. Okay. We're gonna take a break after this story. This is just in. I'm gonna see if there's any updates because this just came in today at the Children's Healthcare of Indiana. Apparently, there was a threat, a bomb threat called in against that hospital. So that was around noon today. I don't know if there is any more news about this, so let me double check. But if you're in the Atlanta area and you know what's going on, let me know. Yeah, because I just want to see if there's new information. So it looks like there's an all clear. Okay, so I do have new information. I just pulled it up. It says police have given the all clear after investigating a bomb threat made to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, Hughes Spalding Hospital on Wednesday at around noon. Atlanta police said they were working to determine the legitimacy of the call, which hospital officials said they received around 11:30 a.m. Police conducted a full search of the hospital and gave the all clear just after 1 p.m. They're working closely with local authorities to investigate, a hospital spokesperson has said. The hospital is located downtown Atlanta, right next to Grady Memorial Hospital. So this is again a developing story. So if there's more information comes out, I'll let you know. But I just wanted to share that with you all. Don't know what happened, but we'll see. And I'm not sure why that's been targeting. Atlanta's been going through it for whatever reason. I'm not sure what's causing that, but okay. So we're gonna go to our next story right after this brief break. Staffing, stagnant wages, no work-life balance. Stop being eaten alive. Find your joy, strength, and happiness. Become the leader you are always meant to be. Nurse entrepreneurs are using their skills to launch successful businesses every day. Make your dreams come true. Join the Nurse Shark Academy and come feel the sun at thenurssharkacademy.biz. All right, here's our next story, and we're going across the pond here. This is from the BBC. And it says, ward manager humiliated staff, nurse says. And I want to share this because we've been talking about violence in healthcare, and we have another story related to that. But let's talk about the internal violence in healthcare, which we still have going on, and the bullying. So this is what it says. A nurse has described how she felt humiliated by nitpicking hospital ward manager who is also accused of putting patients' safety at risk. Eleanor Jones said Deborah Pavali's behavior had gotten worse over time and that the way feedback was delivered had got quite personal on occasions. Ms. Pavali, no, it's Povel, sorry, it's Povel. Yeah. Povel is currently facing a nursing and midwifery council hearing into allegations over how she treated staff and the care received by patients on Powell's ward at the Robert Jones and Agnes Hunt Orthopedic Hospital in Goblin, Shropshire. She admitted working excessive hours, but denied all of the other allegations related to the incidents between 2017 and 2019. Well, this is a long time ago, and it's just now coming out. Yeah, this has been a while ago. Okay. If there's any issue that I've done something wrong and not properly, it should be addressed in front of all the other staff members. It's quite humiliating. It was never done sensitively away from other people. She felt it was her who would have get the brunt of it, but at the other times, Ms. Povel could be really supportive. It would make me feel like I couldn't ask questions and I would have to go to other staff to get those answers. The panel was told that when the ward had 28 patients during the night shift, there would be 2 registered nurses to look after them, or 3 if it went above that number. Ms. Jones said on one shift there were 29 patients, but only 2 nurses, and then Ms. Povel had accepted the extra patient. She added that she did not feel this was safe, but this issue was not reported due to fear of repercussions. On another occasion, the ward was caring for a patient whose condition deteriorated, Mrs. Jones said, and they eventually needed to be transferred to the intensive care unit. Mrs. Jones said she wondered why the patient was still on the ward due to the severity of their illness, but was given the impression Ms. Povel thought they could handle the situation. The panel also heard from Sarah Bloomfield, a former chief nurse at RGAH, who said that she was made aware of the allegations against Ms. Povel and arranged to meet the affected staff members at a local pub. Ms. Bloomfield said one member of staff came slightly later because they had been talking to Deborah while the others left. And when the member of the staff arrived, she was extremely anxious and felt she had been followed, and her car was shaking. We were worried that if Deborah had found out, there would be repercussions for them. Mrs. Bloomfield said staff were concerned that the ward was operating at a much higher level of acute dependency than other wards, including which increased the risk to patient safety. She said also that the ward had an outdated style of working, that it had a rigid task based model rather than prioritizing patients based on their needs. So there's a hearing that's going to continue. So I'm sharing that because it's interesting that they picked this story up, that it made like national, international news. And we're seeing more and more of this nurses getting onto the news for various reasons, and the public is becoming aware of some of the challenges. I'm not sure if this is a personality issue with this person, but having been subject to questionable management myself in the past, particularly as a staff nurse, um, I can certainly see this happening. Right, this is something we can see that could happen. All right, let's get to our next story. This is coming from Ignite's long term care news. State forces nursing home rate cut, raising doubts about ability to provide required services. Idaho has become the second state to announce major cuts to Medicaid provider rates ahead of impending federal cuts triggered by the passage of last month's massive reconciliation bill, or as we have been calling it, the big, beautiful bill. Right? The state's number two health and welfare official notified providers Friday that reimbursement rates would be reduced by 4% across all major healthcare settings, including nursing homes, home and community based services, and hospitals. The announcement came just 2 months into a new budget year, with the lower rates going into effect September 1st. This is an existential threat because we haven't had an increase since 2020, said Robert Vandermeer, executive director of the Idaho Health Care Association, told McKnight's Long Term Care News. Meanwhile, we've had COVID, inflation, higher supply costs, and agency nursing costs. Skilled nursing providers in North Carolina are also likewise to face a 10% rate cut October 1st, as state leaders there grapple with a $319 million Medicaid shortfall and eye devastating federal cuts ahead. More states are expected to face such ramifications soon as the reconciliation bill coverage changes shrink Medicaid rolls, provider taxes for hospitals and other settings are limited, and new requirements trigger steep state spending on eligibility verification. Let's go to a brief break and we'll be right back. Ready to turn your nursing skills into a thriving business? At the Nurse Shark Academy, we give you expert strategies, real startup guidance, and the support to go from employee to empowered entrepreneur. Join us and build the nurse-owned business of your dreams. Start today and join us at the nursesharkacademy.biz. All right, sorry about that. I just wanted to check on something. I just heard a noise, and you know how it is. When you hear something, you want to check it out, make sure things going okay. So let's get on back to the story. So now it says again, Steve Laforte is CFO and principal of Casadia Healthcare, which operates 25 of the roughly 80 nursing homes in Idaho. He's in the thick of the battle in Idaho and monitoring possible rate changes in Washington, Montana, and Arizona, reporting that Washington is most concerning. What's happening in Idaho reminds Laforte of conditions in Montana several years back, when 20% of the state's facilities closed. That resulted in significant rate increases, but our fear is Idaho is following the same path of creating an access crisis. And that is what we're working around the clock to prevent. So if you want to hear more about that, please check out this article in McKnight's Long Term Care News. They've got some great information here, and I love sharing some of the information that they have. But we are getting close to our time, so I want to keep moving. All right, so this story came from the CDC. It says the CDC quietly scaled back a surveillance program for foodborne illnesses. This is from NBC News. And it says a federal state partnership that monitors foodborne illnesses quietly scaled back its operations nearly 2 months ago. As of July 1st, the Foodborne Disease Active Surveillance Network program has reduced surveillance to just 2 pathogens, Salmonella and Shigella toxin producing E. coli. A spokesperson for the Center for Disease and Control and Prevention told NBC News. Before July, the program had been tracking infections caused by six additional pathogens: Campylobacter, Cyclospora, Listeria, Shigella, Vibrio, and Yersinia. Now, I'm going to say I'm kind of interested that they're not tracking Listeria because that is also something that can be deadly. Some of them can lead to severe life threatening illnesses, particularly for newborns and people who are pregnant or have weakened immune systems. Monitoring for the six pathogens is no longer required for the 10 states that participate in the program, though those states are precluded from conducting surveillance on their own. Food safety experts worry that the move, which hasn't been previously made public, could make it harder for public health officials to understand how common food illnesses are noticed, whether cases are rising. Essentially, CDC is backing off on one of their best surveillance systems, said Dr. Glenn Morris, director of the Emerging Pathogens Institute at the University of Florida. Morris, a former Agriculture Department official, was instrumental in helping create FoodNet in 1995. FoodNet is a collaboration among the CDC, the Food and Drug Administration, the Agriculture Department, and 10 state health departments. Its surveillance area covers roughly 54 million people, or 16% of the U.S. population. The network includes Colorado, Connecticut, Georgia, Maryland, Minnesota, New Mexico, Oregon, Tennessee, and select counties in California and New York. Although FoodNet will narrow its focus to Salmonella and STEC, which is the E. coli, it will maintain both its infrastructure and the quality it has come to represent, the CDC spokesperson wrote. Narrowing FoodNet's reporting requirements and associated activities will allow FoodNet staff to prioritize core activities. So we'll keep an eye on that. Just kind of interesting how this is all coming out. If you want to hear more, go ahead on over to ABC News to get more information about this. All right. Couple more, and then we're going to get to some good stuff, right? I always like to leave on the good stuff. All right. Van Duren owners will pay millions to settle patient neglect, financial fraud claims. Okay. So this is coming from Syracuse.com, and it says the owners of Van Duren will pay $12 million to settle claims that they pocketed millions from taxpayers over more than a decade, while leaving Central New Yorkers to suffer in one of the state's largest nursing homes, New York Attorney General Letitia James said today. As part of the settlement, Van Duren Center for Rehab and Nursing agreed to be overseen by two independent monitors approved by the state to supervise the home's patient care and financial operations. The owners will pay $2 million to the state's Medicaid fund as restitution to taxpayers, and $10 million to a Van Duren fund for improvements recommended by the independent monitors. The settlement ends an 8-year battle between New York State and the owners of 513-bed nursing home on Ananga Hill, Ephraim Steve and Yuri Koenig. Over the years, the Post-Standard reported about suspicious deaths, inadequate staffing, and numerous complaints of neglect and abuse at the nursing home at 505 Southwest Seneca Turnpike. A Syracuse.com investigation found the nursing home staffers ignored, mistreated, or forced some of the frail population. Forced out some of its frail population. Residents faced malnourishment for refusing to eat inedible food. Showers had only cold water for weeks. At least 5 residents died and 40 others were injured because of neglect at Van Duren, state officials said in court papers. James said she agreed to the settlement with the nursing home owners because she did not believe their actions amounted to criminal behavior. In legal documents detailing the settlement, Van Duren's owners did not admit to or deny the Attorney General's finding. Their lawyer did not respond to requests for comment. So Van Duren has bounced on and off the list of the nation's worst nursing homes for the 3 times in recent years. It has last became a special focus facility candidate in February 2023 and has remained there. The documented cases of neglect include a resident whose fall and subsequent death wasn't discovered for hours, a woman who accidentally hanged herself with her nightgown caught on a bathroom door handle, and 2 dementia residents who died after suffering dehydration and malnutrition. The state attorney general's office, through its Medicaid fraud unit, began investigating the nursing home in 2017. The investigation found persistent neglect of patients that resulted in harm and death, insufficient staffing at the nursing home, and a diversion of millions of dollars of Medicaid and Medicaid money intended for resident care. In 2023, the state said Van Duyn's owners diverted $37.6 million for the nursing home instead of spending it to improve the residents' care. For years, residents of Van Duyn endured unacceptable neglect that caused traumatic injuries and tragic deaths, James said. We are holding Van Duyn's owners accountable for these conditions and ensuring the facility will make all the necessary changes so that its residents will get the care they deserve. So again, just information on that to let you know there's more coming through. So as we're talking about violence in healthcare, here's another case from nurse.org. It was reported. It says woman who assaulted nurse gets 5 years in prison. So the defendant, Gina Thorne, 33 years old, assaulted a public servant, third-degree felony from Baptist Hospital. This incident was in February 2024. So a 33-year-old Southeast Texas woman, Jenna Horn, has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for assaulting a registered nurse at Baptist Hospital while receiving medical treatment. The incident occurred in February 2024, and Horn was convicted on assault of a public servant classified as a third-degree felony under Texas law. According to court records, Horn physically attacked a registered nurse with her fist while she was a patient receiving medical care at the hospital. The assault occurred during the course of the nurse's professional duties, providing patient care. This case highlights the serious legal consequences for assaulting healthcare workers. Under Texas law, assault on a public servant, which includes healthcare workers in public hospitals, is elevated to a third-degree felony, carrying more severe penalties than standard assault charges. The 5-year sentence demonstrates the court's commitment to protecting healthcare professionals who face increasing workplace violence. This sentencing serves as an important precedent for the healthcare worker protection, particularly as hospitals nationwide continue to grapple with rising incidents of patient violence against medical staff. This case underscores the legal system's recognition of healthcare workers as deserving of special protection while performing their essential duties. So we'll see what happens with this and see if there's any implications going forward for other hospitals. All right, so a little bit of good news, because I always like to end on the good news. So I have a couple of interesting and great announcements. So the first one is IUSB, that's Indiana University South Bend nursing program, receives a grant for mental health de-escalation training. Indiana University South Bend is launching a new program to train nurses in mental health de-escalation thanks to a 3-year grant from the Valenholz Foundation. Chief Nurse Administrator Barbara White said the training comes at a critical time. Nurses are the most at-risk profession for experiencing workplace violence. We need to find a way to make workplaces safer, to de-escalate before things become violent, before violent situations cause harm. The program will begin by certifying a group of instructors. They will then train students, faculty, and staff in the nursing program. White said the training won't stop there. So we will train 150 of our nursing students, and then from there we'll take it into the broader IU South Bend community and the broader South Bend community in general. We expect that the reach is going to be much deeper, broader than just our own nursing students, that it's really going to make it out into our community. The statistics that are coming out of nursing right now is that somewhere between the range of 40 to 50% of nurses do not persist in nursing past 3 years in the profession. That's very scary for all of us, White said. Beyond training future nurses, White said she hopes the program will change how the wider community responds to crisis. At some point as a society, we need to say enough is enough, and we need to protect each other. Let's intervene early. Let's stay tuned into each other. Let's perceive, and then let's act. White said the goal is to make the training a permanent part of the curriculum at IUSB and a lasting resource for the South Bend community. So congratulations to them on that, and hopefully that program will go well and will be expanded elsewhere. And lastly, this is our nurses, plural, making a difference. Because I thought this was great. And this is again another article at nurse.org. And it says how a nurse-led running club supports each other through cancer and life. I truly believe life is better when you can experience it with others, says runner and 2-time cancer survivor Mike Trinidad. When Maxine Robles, a nurse and manager of physician outreach at Northside Hospital Cancer Institute in Sandy Springs, Georgia, decided to try running for the first time, She had no idea that it would not only change her life, but also the lives of so many around her. After training for her first 5K, Robles joined other colleagues to form an unofficial running club, and the core three, now extended to a fourth, began meeting monthly to run 5K races together. Soon, the running club would extend to Robles' close friend and neighbor, Mike Trinidad, a two-time cancer survivor and Northside patient. While Trinidad underwent chemotherapy last year, Robles was able to run the Peachtree Road race in his honor, but this year Trinidad was ready to hit the road once again with his friend. He and Robles were able to run his first post treatment 5K together. Side by side, Robles and Trinidad took on the physical representation of what inner strength and friendship were all about, taking life together step by step through challenges and celebrations. The truth is, Robles was never a runner. Growing up with a self proclaimed sedentary lifestyle as a latchkey kid eating processed frozen meals and cruising through college on pizza and beer, Robles tells Nurse.org that she only decided to take up running in 2018. After losing over 50 pounds, Robles decided to begin training for a race. Now that my body was able to move and bend, I took on the challenge. Now that the weight was off, now what? She used the Couch to 5K app to learn how to train and run and set her sights on her first race, a 4-mile fundraiser in her local community, Peachtree Corners. Her training was so unprecedented that she laughed that a friend saw her one day running in my community and texted her, "Did I just see you running or did I see pigs fly?" Pigs did not fly that day, but Robles did, kicking off what is now a 5-year and still counting stretch of running, training, and a slew of races that includes her first half marathon. I still pinch myself when I see a collection of my running bibs and medals from the recent years. Robles runs with two co-workers and another former nurse to Atlanta Track Club. After trying a race for the first time, Robles found that she thrived in the crowd setting and decided to challenge herself to do one run a month. Now the three runners have been running a monthly 5K for over 3 years. So there's more to the story. It sounds great. I just think this is wonderful. So congratulations to these nurses. This is what Trinidad has to say. He explains going through cancer twice. Support like the type he received from the running group was part of the two key strategies he learned that were crucial to making it through. One, worry about the things you control, and two, surround yourself with good people. So, on that note, I think that we should end our show today. I want to share that with you to surround yourself with good people. There's more to the story. They just did an excellent job, and congratulations to them and being our nurses making a difference. So let's talk about a few announcements. So again, next week there will be no show because I'm going on vacation and I will not be there. So, but you can watch our other show, the Nurse Shark Academy show, where we interview nurse business owners and leaders. You can find us on YouTube or Podbean or wherever you get your podcast. We are there. So tune into the Nurse Shark Academy show or head on over to the nursesharkacademy.biz for that show as well. Also, next month, we do have some training coming up. We've got our CPR training, our TB training. Those things are already on the docket. So go to Baxter Professional Services healtheducation.com. And then, as always, we're gearing up for our fall cohort for our CNA training program. So if you're interested in that, put in the application. Go to Baxter Professional Services healtheducation.com. And you can sign up and put in the application. And then when we get enough students, we will have our next cohort for our CNA training program. So that's what we have going on. I thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time and have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye for now.